If you're never really present and you're always all over the place and it's just about you and it's all about your topics and you're so tired or you're so exhausted or you're so overwhelmed all the time, eventually it's going to be hard for your vis-a-vis to be non-judgmental, because it's just, that's not a relationship, that's therapy. When it comes to relationship, we have to differ between our observing ourselves and our being with the other. Because what happens the moment we become more and more aware is that we often are so stuck in observing what's going on within us that we're actually not really connecting anymore, especially when there's a lot of overwhelm. That is typical if there's trauma present, and that is typical if new layers of awakening are opening up. Awakening is something that never stops. It's not that you're awakened and that's it. So there's more and more awakening. And every time one of these filters kind of open up and more information floods in, you become more sensitive to your context. You become more aware of what's going on, more aware of your physical presence, more aware of what the others are doing. Then there's usually overwhelm. It's natural. It's just a step in the phase of the next layer. It's almost like the next video game, you know, you go to the next level and you're initially overwhelmed. What the heck am I supposed to do here? I'm still supposed to find the treasure, but how is my context here? You're orienting. And in that phase of orientation, everything is more about you. So healthy relationships require the more courage to actually be you than, let's say, charisma. And that's the vulnerability piece that we already had today. And the moment we kind of feel, okay, this is me, I'm safe here in my identity, we're much better able to be in the relationship also about the other. Most people lead their relationships only for themselves. My feeling, my perspective, what do I get out of this? It's very childlike. And we're always entering this childlike phase again when a new level of awareness opens up to us. Because in overwhelm, we kind of are like orienting, like, what's this got to do with me? And then we kind of regress a bit into more ego-centered thinking. So especially in phases where there's a lot of overwhelm, we have to deliberately always check in, and actually, what's the other doing here? Because otherwise we're just in relationship with ourselves, and the other person is basically the tree we rub against, but not for the sake of the tree. It's just us learning in proximity with another, but not really with another. And I think that's one of the most, that's the one thing you can make me really angry with. If you're being with me and it's just about your learning curve, I usually tend to step back. And there is certain containers that I offer, like this one, where it's just about your learning curve, and you still connect with me. But in a relationship that's not transactional, that's not a teaching container or a coaching container or something like that, it needs to be about both. And it needs to be balanced between what am I doing here and how do I perceive the other and how can I contribute there? And that's a very intricate and vulnerable construct system. So relationships, when we have them, we're going to go into how do we build them and how do we repair them. That's the two things we're doing today. Usually we don't build them specifically. I said to 3 people in the last week that I've reached out to a woman that I've wanted to talk to for a long time. And I feel like a kindergarten child because I basically sent her a message saying, can I be your friend? And it feels highly vulnerable. And we still do this, you know, and there's an innocence in that, and also the reach out from aliveness, and then you don't know what you're going to get, especially if the person that you want to talk to is somebody you have a connection with for a while that the other person has never understood because it was online. I was just watching what she was doing. And I got a fantastic answer. She said, I feel you reaching out with your hand and I'm grabbing your hand right back. And I was like, ha, in tears with the glee of it. Fantastic. Like that's the best thing that can happen. So reaching out to build up relationships, if it starts in innocence and in aliveness like that, it has a good foundation generally. But we usually don't deliberately build our relationships. They just happen to us. And then they collapse. And then we're like, oh, now this needs work. And first of all, nobody teaches us how to do that, neither the building nor the repairing. And also, we kind of have the expectation that why does it require work? It's supposed to serve us, a little bit of a narcissistic trait in there within us humans. Like, why the heck do I have to invest now? Excuse me. This was supposed to just run by itself. And when we get older, and that can start at a very young age, but let's say when we become more and more aware, we understand that this actually needs investment. It doesn't just need effort, because effort is something I do, so I get. But investment, in the term that investment is usually used in business, is something you want to invest in something so it grows with you. And that's like the third organism, it's a relationship is you and me, and then there's an us. And the us is the so-called third organism, and it has a life of its own. It has a culture. It's almost like an extra being that has to be addressed here, this deliberate us. And the moment we can actually address the us instead of constantly being about the me, which then has a versus you, that's when relationships actually become a really beautiful thing. So usually we kind of slide into them somehow. And then at some point when there's trouble and they collapse, only then we start to actually put in investment or at least effort. And usually they collapse when shame is unmanaged. So when something happens and one person is ashamed and they have no idea how to handle it. And the thing is, about shame already, a child that is ashamed hides behind their eyes, their hands, closes their eyes. You say, we have that saying that you kind of want to disappear. You want to not be seen in shame, which means when you register shame, you can't just point your finger at, are you ashamed? The person will feel mortified. So shame is a very tricky thing. It's the lowest frequency that we can hold. And if something happens and you feel ashamed, you feel highly uncomfortable, things are embarrassing, then this needs to be addressed in yourself. And I always say, if somebody is ashamed, I prefer a phone conversation, because then the person can hide a bit more. The next thing that makes relationships collapse is when difficult conversations are being avoided. When there's something up and one or two people involved just try to, it's the avoidant attachment style. You cannot own what's happening in you. It doesn't even mean that you own your behavior. Sometimes people very well own their behavior, but they cannot own the amount of stuff that's going on within, especially not the stuff that goes on in the other, where they feel kind of guilty about. So that's the guilt thing, is another thing that's collapsing relationships. When there's no clear boundaries, when you have never said, hey, that's too much, or I don't know how to go about this, but this feels uncomfortable, can you please respect that? And people offering you respect, you have to see if it's really respect or just a way to get out of their guilt. Often people say, I want to do this to respect you. And it's like a gesture that has a double bind in it, because it's like, I give you respect so I don't feel guilty. It's an indirect confession of BS. And the last thing is when armor is replacing curiosity. So when you armor up instead of being curious about the other. So something went wrong here. What was it? Can we talk about it? That would be curiosity. When I say, ooh, I'm just protecting myself, then there is armor replacing the curiosity. This is when relationships collapse. And this is when we usually start the work of building relationships back up or repairing them. So if we look at what is required for a relationship to be built up, I brought you a couple things. First of all, vulnerability. Everybody knows that. If you cannot be your full self with all the uncomfortable parts of you, the relationship is not really deep. So that is naming hard truths directly, having difficult conversations early, and staying present when you're uncomfortable. That's the 3 things about vulnerability. That is Brené Brown, by the way. I'm quoting her here. And also, my big thing is boundaries and how they create trust. Brené has created a fantastic framework for building trust. It's called the braving process. And it includes B for boundaries, R for reliability, A for accountability. Now, what's the difference between reliability and accountability? Reliability means that you actually stand by what you promise, and also stand by that your words and your actions are one. You don't say one thing and do the other. And accountability is more a thing of consistency. Then V is for vault, and vault means confidentiality, which means if I tell you, you don't pass it on, and I'm safe in that. My information is safe with you. People who are more exposed in public usually have that down because of some early painful experiences. People who are just normal folks tend to overshare because spilling secrets is creating closeness. So people telling you, have you heard la la la, that is supposed to create some kind of closeness, because you even have to lean in and whisper. There is the physical closeness, but that's not really the kind of closeness you want, because it's on the bill of somebody else. Somebody pays for this. The next one is integrity. Integrity is simple enough. You know who you are right now, and you know what to share and what not to share. It doesn't mean that you're strategic here, but oversharing in a context where you don't know if you're safe is actually not in your integrity, because it will get used against you at some point. So integrity is not, I can be my full self and I don't care and I can fully trust. That's unconditional love. Integrity means, what can I put out that will not get used against me, because I understand what the other person can hold. It's not a judgment. It's an awareness of contexts, capabilities, abilities, and also the situation as in context, as in, okay, right now the person just had a very heavy day. I'm not going to just spill everything, because that might be a bit much, and then I will not be held in this. The next is non-judgment. That's what I just mentioned here a couple lines earlier. That means my behavior, my inner world is not judging the other person for what they do, because I don't know their current context before I haven't found out. So if I say something and the other person has barely said hello and doesn't react the way I want them to react, or I need them to react right now, I can't judge them, because I don't know where they're coming from. You never know what a person is currently coming from. And I think that's the best, how do you say it, idea behind how can I get into non-judgment. Asking myself, I don't know their context. I don't know the complexity of the situation. Can I step away and ask them what their whole context is, before I'm upset that their behavior is currently not aligned with what I want to do? And also the other way around, like somebody told me today, if you have a difficult conversation come up, you both want to be not with your head half in your, I don't know, business plan. You want to be present with this. And that is also, first of all, is integrity. Second of all, that's respect. And third of all, that's necessary for non-judgment. If you're never really present and you're always all over the place and it's just about you and it's all about your topics and you're so tired or you're so exhausted or you're so overwhelmed all the time, eventually it's going to be hard for your vis-a-vis to be non-judgmental, because it's just, that's not a relationship, that's therapy. And the last one is generosity. That means assuming positive intent. So, you know, a little bit like grounding rule omega, Daniel Schmachtenberger's fantastic thing here. That means you assume the other person always means well. You cannot demand that, but you can grant it. That's why it's granting rule omega only. That's the generosity Brené Brown is playing with here. So that's how trust is built. Boundaries, reliability, accountability, the vault, aka confidentiality, integrity, non-judgment, and generosity. It's quite stuff to do. But if you want to build good relationships, put them on your fridge or somewhere. And examine your relationships. Am I doing this? Am I reliable? Am I actually reaching out and accountable for this relationship? Am I in my integrity here? Do I judge the other or do they judge me? You just do the math on your most important relationships. And then you know, oh, this needs work. And if the relationship is important to you, it's easy to put the investment in there. Oh, I need to be a little bit more accountable. I can do that. This is something I want to do because I love this person. Or I'd love to work with this person. The next thing we have to build, not just trust, but shame resilience.